Friend, yesterday we had studied about Demosthenes that as a boy he was shy and delicate. Demosthenes' father died when he was 7 years old and his guardians were not careful with his money. Demosthenes wanted to become a great orator, but he always stammered in public. One day when he saw Callistratus spoke in public, he was inspired by him and he thought to become an orator like him. When he was 18, he spoke in the assembly of Athens. But again, his first address was a failure. He knew it from the faces of people around him and was filled with shame. This is surely the last time I speak in public. See, this is very important line for this reference. Who is I here? Demosthenes. He thought sadly. Why he was sad? Because again his speech was a failure. He left the assembly and walked slowly down the road, realizing where he was going. Suddenly, he felt someone touch his arms. It was who touched his arms? An old man who had heard him speak in the assembly. He had seen how sad and disappointed Demosthenes was. He looked at him keenly and praised him. But the old man looked at him and he praised him. He told him that his speech reminded him of the great orator Pericles. What old man said? That it's his speech. Whose speech? Demosthenes' speech reminded him of the great orator Pericles. How can you give up so easily, Demosthenes? Old man said, why you are giving up so easily? Yes, Demosthenes felt encouraged and tried again, but he failed a second time. This time he left the assembly, hiding his face in his cloak. Cloak means a sleeveless outdoor garment. You can see outdoor garment that hangs loosely from the shoulders. So this time he hid his face in his cloak. An actor named Satyrus, who knew him well, followed him. So now who followed Demosthenes? Satyrus. When he hid his face in his cloak, Satyrus followed him. He knew that Demosthenes would be in despair. Who is he here? Satyrus. Satyrus knew that Demosthenes is very sad. Demosthenes did not hide his feelings from Satyrus. A sailor with a foolish story will make them applaud, while I tell them tales of the glorious deeds of their own countrymen. They do not care, he said bitterly. Demosthenes said to Satyrus that if any heroic story we will tell people, they will clap, they will laugh, but any glorious deeds of any countryman, of any soldier we will tell, then people will not take any interest. True, Demosthenes, answered Satyrus, but I'll tell you why it is so. If you recite to me some lines from one of our great poets. But Satyrus told him that I'll tell you why people are not taking interest in your poems. Then Demosthenes recited some poems to him. He spoke the words correctly, but his voice was dull. So when Demosthenes recited some poems, his voice was very weak and very dull. There was awkwardness in the way he delivered his speech. When Demosthenes finished, Satyrus repeated the lines back to him. Demosthenes stood with surprise. He could not believe that they were the same lines. The actor's eyes flashed, his voice rose and fell, and his body swayed as he spoke. So when Satyrus spoke, the same lines which Demosthenes spoke was totally different, and Demosthenes was surprised that my same lines are so much different, and Satyrus' voice was also stronger, and it was full of interest. Demosthenes understood why his speeches did not interest the Athenians. He realized that he must not only read or recite them but also act them. So now Demosthenes realized that when he is saying speeches, not only he should speak, he should act also. Then only people will take interest. From that day on, Demosthenes began to work in different way. He converted one of the cellars of his house into a study. There he practiced undisturbed. So, after that what he did? Cellars means underground rooms. One of the underground rooms of his house, he converted that into a study, and there Demosthenes started practicing. He often lived in his study for 2 or 3 months at a stretch. For 2 or 3 months he lived there and he started practicing. They say he went to the seashore and shouted his speech with pebbles in his mouth. Pebbles means stones. He also practiced with pebbles in his mouth. It made him struggle to bring out every second. So when he spoke without the stones, the words came through louder and clear. So after that, when he spoke without the stone also, the voice came which is very clear and very loud. He watched himself in the mirror as he spoke to improve his expressions, gestures and actions. And he also watched himself to improve him. That improvement is there or not. He had seen himself in mirror. Movement of his hands, head. Gestures means movement of his expressions, movement of hands, head while giving a speech. He practiced speaking as he walked or ran along the seashore. He also practiced running along the seashore. He raised his voice so that he could heard over the roaring waves. He also practiced speaking as he ran up a hill. He practiced when he ran up a hill. In all the way he started practicing. He also practiced speaking as he walked or ran along the seashore. All these trained his breath, voice and tone. Demosthenes' speeches were now filled with drama and purpose. He was no longer the boy who was shy and spoke with a stammer. Now he is no longer a boy who spoke with a stammer, and he was no longer shy. So this is all about Demosthenes.